Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime, bringing you my review for Eden Zero, Chapter 99. Okay, so so there's a lot to talk about with this chapter, but first, can we just talk about the whole heated conversation slash debate between Weiss and Shiki about killing Drakken Joe? Because honestly, even though Majima has done really good in separating Shiki's character from his others, in this single chapter, he kind of fixed both the Natsu and, frankly, just the general shonen protagonist problem for me, which is that in most cases like this, the shonen protagonist will always come up with some explanation for why killing is out of hatred is wrong and immoral. And don't get me wrong, like Shiki himself, he still did go through that whole spiel about why killing Drakken Joe isn't the right thing to do. But the way that conversation was structured and the way it just played out, um, you can see it's really you can see it's one of those things where we're just through. You can see that there are moments of hesitation that Shiki was having, just from the way, just from what Weiss's side of the argument, just from the way Weiss was talking about Drakken Joe, and just through those moments of hesitation, you can see it's really when Shiki delivered his whole spiel, for him it was kind of his own rational conclusion in a situation where it was just his own rational conclusion in a situation where he doesn't really even have an answer, or at least one that is necessarily easy, because at the it's for pretty much Shiki, as we see in this chapter, Shiki himself is basically battling with what was his entire time. He was hiding the whole trauma of I don't want to lose my friends. During this entire time, he was hiding that, and so he thought that the only way he could. So he only said what he could say in that moment. And so it's not really so much an answer as it is pretty much. So the answer he gave to Weiss isn't so much an answer as much as it is him just saying, I don't want to lose any of my friends anymore. So it's just his way of saying I'm scared. He's basically just he's scared in that one. He's scared in the moment. He was scared. He just didn't know what to do. So yeah, it is kind of an interesting way of looking at it in that sense. He didn't have a right answer really. With that said, let's talk about Drakken Joe's defeat and what it means for the story going forward, because this arc has definitely been one that's been so goddamn crazy, so intense, with just how downright psychotic Drakken Joe has been as a villain. And I imagine just because of that, just because of all the insanity we've been facing down in this arc, I imagine there are more than a few who have also forgotten that Joe is really just one of 5 dangerous crime lords that run a little organization known as the Orasian Seis Galactica, or 6 Demon Generals. And if Drakken Joe is anything close to a measuring stick of what the other Demon Generals are like, then yeah, our heroes are in for some serious trouble. If they don't get stronger, are in for some serious trouble if they don't pick up the pace and get stronger. Lickety split. They need to start taking this shit seriously, and they really need to start getting stronger. And it's not like I'm saying they didn't make progress, because they did with Shiki fully awakening his overdrive and Rebecca awakening her powers. So in that sense, they have grown stronger. But what I mean when I say that our heroes need to grow stronger is that everyone needs to go stronger now, because the thing is, with Drakken Joe's defeat, you have to imagine that from here, it won't be long before Drakken Joe's Drakken Joe's defeat is gonna catch the eye or attention of the four other generals, and they'll be coming at our heroes with full force next time. Like it isn't just gonna. It's like it really like if you really look at the implications of this chapter, with our heroes defeating Drakken Joe, they've essentially declared war on the criminal underworld, and they need to be prepared for that storm. Like our heroes, like our heroes have gotten out of this, but only by the skin of their teeth, but by Shiki having finally awakened his having awakened his having finally awakened his power, his overdrive power. But that's really the only thing but that again, that only happened because Shiki was pushed to his limits. But next time, even with Shiki's power, they may not be so lucky. So yeah, just everyone just needs to get stronger. They need to grow. They need to grow and get more powerful. Otherwise, it's otherwise they're probably not going to be as lucky next time as they were here. Even with, and that's even with Shiki's with, and that's even taking into account like it's even taking into account Rebecca's powers of being able to turn back time. Like it won't matter how many times she turns back the clock if our heroes aren't strong enough in order to face down that threat. So yeah, this definitely shows that the four. I think our heroes are definitely going to have to worry about the four other generals now, and they need to be prepared. They need to be prepared for when that encounter happens now. And yeah, so I'm just curious what. So yeah, I'm excited, intrigued, but also it's one of those things where I'm excited, intrigued, but also scared as to where Mashima's is gonna take it from here. Honestly, now I guess one thing to address in this arc is addressed with this arc officially reaching its conclusion is that it looks like Weiss is getting out of this with both of his arms intact, and I'm kind of disappointed just from the stance of it would have shown there are some things you can't necessarily fix if he had lost his arm here, like in the previous world, but I'm also willing to give Mashima the benefit of the doubt that it still is going to happen, just not here and not at the hands of Drakken Joe. Yeah, I think it is still going to happen. It's just like I still believe in the whole idea of that Mashima is going with that everything is relative and that some events are always going to happen. So like with that, I do believe that Weiss is still going to lose his arm. It's just not going to be the hands of Drakken Joe. In fact, probably going back to what I just mentioned, it might be at the hands of another demon general or something like that. But with that said, but since we're talking about Weiss, let's talk about his development in this chapter. Because between not killing Drakken Joe and receiving the pendant from basically Sabir, the pendant from his mother's penance from Sabir, and like his mother's pendant being returned to him, you can tell that Weiss's character has reached a very key turning point in the series. And don't get me wrong, Weiss is still very much his own person, and he's going to make his own decisions. He's not going to let his previous self dictate who he becomes. The other interesting thing with this chapter and the whole symbolism, I guess, with the pendant and him with the pendant and Sabir returning it to him, is that this chapter does also show how the history of his older Professor Weiss counterpart is still in some ways molding and defining his journey, as well as the person he wants to be. And again, while he has been given a lot of good development up to this point, I think Mashima is really going to kick like Weiss's development into overdrive now. Like there's something about the way that about the way that Weiss's like story arc with his mother and Sabir all kind of came to its conclusion in this chapter that tells me that yeah, Weiss is really gonna start developing even more as a character than we've ever seen before, honestly, and I'm really excited for that. um, I although yeah, like I said, I'm curious like how again how much of that history is going to define how much of that history is going to define who he ends up becoming, or what different choices he's going to make now and whatnot. Um, so with that said, though, I haven't talked about it, but let's talk about it. The whole, which is the whole Captain Connor situation, because a lot of the comments I saw on the site I read the Eden Zero chapters on, more or less said that Connor was either erased or reorganized into, or erased from this world or reorganized into the timeline. And considering next week's chapter is called Eden's One, I think the latter is more likely. But going back to what I said, the bigger question now is like for me, it's a bigger question right now of whether or not he's going to be an ally. Because right now I'm getting a lot of vibes from this chapter that he's not exactly. I'm getting even more vibes now from this chapter that Connor isn't exactly who he says he is, and while I don't know who exactly he could be, whether or not he's part of the Eurasian States Galactica or a member of the Interstellar Union Army, um, like there's his disappearance in itself is definitely suspect now, but and I don't know what Mashin was planning, but it definitely all hinges on that 100th chapter. And I'm not 100% sure what Mash was planning, but you can tell you can tell with Connor's disappearance that he's definitely got some big plan for that 100th chapter. And yeah, I'm just curious whatever kind of curveball he's gonna throw us here. That's for sure. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Analyst or Control. Death Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.